Commander Vexthal floated through the dark space around the broken research station. His ship moved slowly between the pieces of metal and glass that were once a secret council facility. The debris field stretched for miles in every direction. Something had destroyed this place completely, but the attack happened so long ago that no one remembered what caused it. Vexthal had been patrolling this empty sector for 3 months. It was boring work, but someone had to check these forgotten corners of space. Pirates sometimes hid in places like this, and old stations sometimes had valuable salvage. Today felt different though. His sensors were picking up something unusual. A faint energy reading came from deep inside the wreckage. Most of the station was dead, but one section still had power. Vexthal guided his small fighter closer to investigate. The energy signature was weak but steady, like something was still working after all these years. He found it buried under a collapsed section of the station's outer ring. A data storage unit heavily shielded and still intact. The thing was built like a fortress designed to survive almost anything. Vexthal used his ship's mechanical arms to pull it free from the debris. Whatever information this thing contained, someone had wanted it to last. Back on his ship, Vexthal connected the storage unit to his computer systems. Immediately, warning messages flashed across his screens. The data was encrypted with Council military codes, the highest level of security in the galaxy. This was not ordinary information. This was something the Council wanted to keep secret from everyone. Vexthal had spent years in Council intelligence before becoming a patrol commander. He still remembered some of the old code-breaking techniques. It took him 3 full days of constant work, but finally the encryption broke apart. What he found inside made him forget how to breathe. Files and files of data about a star system he had never heard of. The system was marked as Quarantine Zone 7 Alpha, in bright red letters. Inside this system was a planet called Earth, and on Earth lived a species called humans. Vexthal had never seen or heard of humans before, but according to these files, they were the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The reports went back over 200 years. The first contact had been an accident. A Council scout ship, damaged and lost, had stumbled into the human system while trying to find its way home. The scout had observed the humans for several months before escaping back to Council space. What the scout found terrified the Council leaders. Humans had developed nuclear weapons while their planet was still divided into hundreds of separate countries. Every other species in the galaxy had united their worlds before creating such dangerous technology. But humans were different. They built weapons first and worried about peace later. The reports got worse as Vexthal read deeper. Human population growth was unlike anything seen before. Most intelligent species naturally limited their numbers as they advanced, but humans just kept growing. Their planet was covered with billions of them and they showed no signs of slowing down. But the most frightening thing was their capacity for war. Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had developed strategies and weapons that made hardened Council military officers sick to read about. These creatures turned warfare into an art form. They studied death and destruction like other species studied music or poetry. One report made Vexthal's hands shake as he read it. A Council military analyst had written, "Human tactical thinking is beyond our understanding. They do not fight to win. They fight to completely destroy their enemies. If these creatures ever reach the stars, they will sweep away everything in their path." The Council's response was swift and absolute. All records of the human system were classified at the highest level. The location of Earth was hidden from every database in the galaxy. Any ship that accidentally found the human system was to report directly to Council intelligence and then have their navigation computers wiped clean. Research teams were sent to study the humans from a safe distance, but even this was dangerous work. Several teams had gone missing over the years. The surviving reports suggested that some researchers had been discovered by human military forces. Others had simply vanished without a trace. The most recent report was dated only 5 years ago. Vexthal read it twice to make sure he understood correctly. Human technology was advancing faster than anyone had predicted. They had developed space travel and were building colonies on other planets in their system. Soon they would be ready to travel between the stars. The final line of the report was written in bold letters. Protocol Omega recommended immediately. This species must never be allowed to leave their system. If humans reach interstellar space, galactic civilization will not survive. Vexthal sat back in his chair and stared at the data. The Council had hidden an entire species from the galaxy. They had erased humans from history before most people even knew they existed. And they had done it because they were terrified of what humans might become. But as Vexthal looked at the date on the final report, he realized something that made his blood turn cold. The report was 5 years old. The humans were supposed to be contained in their system, cut off from the rest of the galaxy. But if that was true, then why had he started hearing strange stories from traders on the Outer Rim? Stories about ships with unknown designs and crews that spoke a language no one recognized. Stories about a species that called themselves humans. Vexthal looked at the coordinates burned into the secret files. Earth's location was right there in front of him. The Council's greatest secret was now his to carry. But he had a terrible feeling that he might already be too late to do anything about it. 5 years before Vexthal found the hidden data files, Councillor Drexmari sat alone in his private office deep inside the Council headquarters. The lights were dim and the massive building was quiet during the night shift. But Drexmari could not sleep. He was reading reports that kept him awake for weeks. The human monitoring files were spread across his desk like a disease. Every page contained more disturbing information about the species that lived in the hidden star system. Drexmari had been studying these creatures for 30 years, ever since he joined the secret committee that watched over Earth. The committee had only 12 members, all sworn to absolute secrecy. They met once every few months to review the latest surveillance data from the human system. Each meeting left them more worried than the last. The humans were not developing like other species. They were becoming something the galaxy had never seen before. Drexmari picked up the oldest report in his collection. It was written over 300 years ago by Scout Captain Yelthon, the unfortunate explorer who had first discovered Earth. His ship had been damaged in an asteroid collision and thrown off course into unknown space. When his navigation systems finally worked again, he found himself looking at a blue and green planet covered with life. At first, Yelthon was excited. Finding new intelligent life was every scout's dream. He spent months studying the humans from orbit, recording their behavior and technology. But his excitement quickly turned to horror as he realized what he was seeing. The humans lived in separate groups scattered across their planet. These groups, called nations, fought each other constantly. They had wars that killed millions of their own kind. They built weapons designed to destroy entire cities. Most shocking of all, they seemed to enjoy the fighting. Yelthon's report described battles where humans used poison gas against each other. He watched them drop explosives from flying machines onto civilian populations. He saw them build machines designed only for killing other humans more efficiently. No other species in the galaxy had ever shown such creativity in destroying their own kind. But the worst discovery came later. The humans had split the core of atoms to create weapons of unbelievable power. They had built bombs that could destroy entire cities with a single explosion. And they had done this while their planet was still divided into hundreds of separate countries, each one ready to fight the others. Every other species in galactic history had united their worlds before developing such dangerous technology. War was supposed to end when a species became advanced enough to destroy itself. Fear of total destruction always brought peace and unity. But humans were different. They built the ultimate weapons and kept fighting anyway. Drexmari moved to the next set of reports. These came from the research teams that had studied human behavior for decades. The findings were even more troubling than the weapons. Dr. Kethval's psychological analysis was particularly disturbing. Humans showed no natural population controls like other intelligent species. Most advanced civilizations naturally limited their numbers as they developed better technology. But human population just kept growing. Their planet now held over 7 billion individuals, and they were still making more. The humans also showed unusual adaptability. They lived in almost every environment on their planet, from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. They ate almost anything and could survive in conditions that would kill most other species. This kind of biological flexibility was dangerous in an intelligent species. Even more worrying was their approach to technology. Humans did not develop new inventions slowly and carefully like other species. They made rapid changes and improvements, often without fully understanding the consequences. They would build something dangerous first and worry about safety later. Dr. Zalman's military assessment made Drexmari's hands shake every time he read it. Human warfare was unlike anything seen in the galaxy. They did not fight to win territory or resources like normal species. They fought to completely destroy their enemies. They studied the art of war like other species studied mathematics or poetry. Human military thinking was creative in horrible ways. They would pretend to retreat and then attack from behind. They would disguise their soldiers as civilians. They would poison water supplies and burn food stores to starve entire populations. They fought without honor or mercy, using any method that brought victory. The final report in Drexmari's collection was the most recent surveillance data. Human technology was advancing faster than anyone had predicted. In just 50 of their years, They had gone from simple chemical rockets to establishing permanent colonies on other worlds in their system. Their space program showed the same ruthless efficiency as their military. They built rockets by testing them until they exploded, learning from each failure. They sent living creatures into space to see what would happen. They took risks that no other species would consider. The surveillance team's conclusion was clear and terrifying. Within 50 more years, humans would develop faster-than-light travel. When that happened, they would spread across the galaxy like a plague. Their superior adaptability and aggressive nature would overwhelm every other species. Drexmari closed the final report and rubbed his tired eyes. Tomorrow he would present these findings to the full council. He already knew what their decision would be. The evidence was too clear to ignore. Humanity was an extinction-level threat to galactic civilization. They could not be reasoned with, controlled, or contained once they reached the stars. The only solution was to make sure they never learned about the rest of the galaxy. The vote would be unanimous. All records of Earth would be erased from every database. The location of the human system would become the galaxy's most closely guarded secret. Any being who discovered the truth would be silenced permanently. It was a terrible decision, but Drexmari knew it was the only choice they had. The galaxy could not survive contact with humanity. Captain Gene Park watched the stars change shape as his ship dropped out of faster-than-light speed. The experimental drive had worked perfectly, carrying the exploration vessel New Sol further from Earth than any human had ever traveled. After months of testing, the breakthrough in space travel had finally allowed humanity to reach beyond their own solar system. Gene still could not believe how quickly everything had changed. Just 2 years ago, human scientists had discovered strange energy patterns in space near Jupiter. The patterns seemed to follow rules that did not match any known physics. A team of researchers led by Dr. Li Min had spent 18 months studying the phenomenon before they realized what they had found. The energy patterns were not natural. They were the remains of some kind of artificial tunnel through space. Something had been using faster-than-light travel near Earth for a very long time. The discovery changed everything. If other beings could travel between stars, then humans could learn to do it too. The research team worked day and night to understand the alien technology. They built test devices and ran thousands of experiments. Many of the early attempts failed dramatically, destroying entire laboratories. But humans had always learned from their failures. Each explosion taught them something new about how the strange energy worked. Now Gene was piloting the first human starship capable of traveling between worlds. His crew of 25 specialists had volunteered for a mission that might be a one-way trip. They had no idea what they would find in the vast darkness between stars. Navigation Officer Yu Kim called out from her station near the front of the bridge. Her voice was excited but controlled. "Captain, I am detecting artificial structures ahead. Multiple ships, definitely not human design." Gene felt his heart rate increase as he looked at the main viewing screen. 3 sleek vessels hung motionless in space about 50 kilometers away. They were beautiful in a way that human technology was not. The ships seemed to flow like water rather than being built from separate parts. Their hulls reflected starlight with colors that shifted and changed. Communications Officer Park So worked frantically at her console, trying to make sense of the signals coming from the alien ships. "Captain, they are transmitting something. It looks like a greeting pattern, but I cannot understand the language." The translation computer that Dr. Lee's team had built was humanity's best attempt at universal communication. It used mathematical concepts and basic physics to create a foundation for language exchange. Gene had hoped it would work, but he had not expected to test it so soon. "Open a channel," Gene ordered. "Let them know we come in peace." The first attempts at communication were slow and difficult. The alien ships seemed as surprised to encounter humans as Jin's crew was to meet them. But gradually the translation system began to work. Mathematical concepts led to simple words, and simple words led to basic sentences. The captain of the lead alien vessel identified himself as Mordun of the Kethlon Republic. His species had been members of something called the Galactic Council for over 1,000 years. When Gene explained that humans came from a planet called Earth, Mordun's response was shocking. "This is impossible," Mordun repeated several times through the translator. "Your species cannot exist. The Council told us that the myth species was just stories made up by traders and explorers." Gene did not understand what Mordun meant by myth species, but the alien captain seemed genuinely confused by their presence. Over several hours of careful communication, a disturbing picture began to emerge. The galaxy was full of intelligent life, with thousands of species working together under the guidance of the Galactic Council. But somehow humanity had never been invited to join this vast civilization. Mordun explained that there were legends about a species that matched human descriptions. Stories told by deep space explorers who claimed to have encountered aggressive, adaptable beings from an unknown system. But the Council had always dismissed these reports as fantasy or misidentification of known species. While Jin's crew was making their historic first contact, similar encounters were happening across the galaxy. 3 star systems away, Commander Na Li and the crew of the exploration ship Busan had discovered a merchant convoy belonging to the Veldar Trade Federation. The alien traders were even more shocked than Mordun had been. Captain Thexral of the trading vessel Prophet's Dream actually fainted when Na Li introduced herself as human. When he recovered, he kept asking his crew to confirm that he was not dreaming or hallucinating. Humans are not real, Thexral insisted through the translation system. Every child knows the stories, but they are just scary tales to frighten youngsters. Humans are monsters from the dark spaces between stars. Na Li found this reaction both amusing and disturbing. Humans had always assumed they were alone in the universe, but apparently the rest of the galaxy knew about them and considered them to be fictional monsters. Within 6 months, 12 human exploration vessels had made contact with various alien species across the outer regions of galactic space. Every encounter followed the same pattern. Initial shock, followed by disbelief, followed by urgent communications with higher authorities. The alien species seemed to fall into 2 categories. Some, like Mordun's people, were curious and eager to learn about these legendary beings who had suddenly appeared. Others, like a military patrol that Commander Kim Jun encountered near the Spiral Nebula, reacted with immediate fear and hostility. The military patrol had actually opened fire on Kim's ship without warning. Only quick thinking and superior human tactics had allowed the Tegu to escape destruction. But not before Kim's crew had managed to capture detailed scans of the alien vessels and their technology. Back on Earth, the news of galactic civilization caused massive excitement and some panic. Humanity was not alone, but they had been deliberately kept ignorant of the vast community that existed beyond their solar system. The question that everyone wanted answered was simple: why had they been left out? The answer came when human intelligence officers began analyzing the data from all the first contact encounters. Every alien species they met seemed to know stories about humans, but all of them had been told these stories were not real. Someone with enormous power had been spreading the lie that humans were fictional. The Galactic Council had been hiding humanity's existence from the rest of the galaxy. But now the secret was out, and it was spreading faster than anyone could control it. The emergency session of the Galactic Council turned into chaos within the first hour. Representatives from over 2,000 worlds filled the massive assembly hall, all demanding answers about the human deception. Councillor Drexmari stood at the central podium, trying to maintain order as angry voices echoed from every direction. "You have lied to us for 3 centuries, shouted Ambassador Colven from the Arcturus Federation. "We trusted the Council to share all information about galactic threats, and you hid an entire species from us." Similar accusations came from dozens of other delegates. The Keflon Republic had already established trade agreements with human colonies. The Veldar merchants were making enormous profits selling human goods across 5-star systems. Meanwhile, species like the militant Vortak Empire were demanding immediate military action to contain what they saw as an invasion. Drexmari tried to explain the Council's reasoning, but his words were lost in the noise of arguing voices. The careful order that had governed galactic politics for millennia was collapsing in a single day. Everything the Council had feared about human contact was coming true, but not in the way they had expected. On the bridge of the human dreadnought Incheon, Admiral Min Han watched the approaching Council fleet through her tactical display. 67 warships from 12 different species, all moving in perfect formation toward the human position near the Kepler Nebula. The Council had given humanity an ultimatum: return to Earth immediately and accept permanent quarantine, or face complete destruction. Min had served in the Korean Space Navy for 15 years before joining the Unified Earth Defense Force. She had studied military history from every human culture, learning tactics from ancient generals and modern strategists. Now she would test those lessons against enemies who had never faced serious combat. "All ships report ready, Admiral," called out Communications Officer Park Hwa from her station. The human fleet consisted of only 12 vessels, but each one had been built using the best technology Earth could produce, enhanced with improvements learned from captured alien equipment. Human engineers had spent months studying the alien ships they had encountered during first contact. The Council species had superior materials and energy sources, but their designs had not changed in centuries. They built their ships for show and ceremony, not for actual warfare. Human vessels were ugly by comparison, but they were built to fight and win. Council fleet is transmitting surrender demands, reported Intelligence Officer Li Bin. They want us to shut down all weapons and prepare to be escorted back to our home system. Min smiled grimly as she watched the alien formation approach. The council ships moved in straight lines, following patterns that had probably been used for ceremonial battles for generations. They had never faced an enemy that would use deception, misdirection, and creative tactics. Signal all ships, Min ordered. Execute Battle Plan Delta. Show them what human warfare really means. The battle began when the council fleet opened fire at maximum range. Their energy weapons were powerful but predictable. Human ships scattered in all directions, breaking formation in ways that confused the alien commanders. Instead of fighting head-to-head like civilized species, the humans began using hit-and-run tactics. Captain Kim Do commanded the destroyer Sol as it swooped behind the council formation. While the main alien fleet focused on the larger human ships, Kim's vessel targeted the enemy command cruiser with precision missile strikes. The council ship's shields were strong, but they were designed to stop direct frontal attacks, not weapons that came from multiple angles simultaneously. The human tactics were unlike anything the council forces had ever encountered. Human ships would pretend to retreat, then suddenly reverse course and attack from unexpected directions. They used the nebulous gas clouds for cover, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Most importantly, they coordinated their attacks with a precision that only came from centuries of studying warfare. Within 3 hours, the council fleet was in complete disarray. Half their ships had been disabled or captured, and the rest were trying to escape. But the humans were not just destroying enemy vessels, they were taking them intact whenever possible. Engineering teams led by Commander Oh Min boarded captured council ships and began studying their technology immediately. The alien vessels used energy systems that were more advanced than anything humans had built, but their computer networks were poorly protected. Human programmers cracked the alien security codes and downloaded technical specifications for weapons, shields, and engines. "This is incredible," Oh reported to Admiral Min over a secure channel. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, but they never thought about protecting it from reverse engineering. We can have improved versions of these systems built within weeks." The battle ended when Council Fleet Commander Yaketh surrendered his remaining ships. His forces had been completely outmaneuvered by an enemy that fought unlike anything in their experience. More disturbing was the realization that the humans had been holding back. They could have destroyed the entire Council fleet, but instead they had chosen to capture most of it. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than official Council communications could suppress it. The species that had been hidden away as too dangerous to contact had defeated the galaxy's most powerful military force in a matter of hours. Even worse, they had done it while showing restraint and tactical brilliance that impressed even their enemies. Back in the council chambers, emergency sessions continued as member species demanded complete restructuring of galactic government. Some civilizations were already sending diplomatic missions to establish formal relations with humanity. Others were fortifying their borders and preparing for what they saw as an inevitable human conquest. But as reports came in from the battle zone, a different picture emerged. The humans were not behaving like conquerors. They were treating captured council personnel with respect and offering medical aid to wounded aliens. They seemed more interested in understanding galactic civilization than destroying it. Counselor Drexmari read the final battle report with growing amazement. Everything the council had feared about human military capability had proven true. But the humans were not the mindless destroyers that 3 centuries of secret reports had described. They were something far more dangerous. Intelligent conquerors who preferred conversion to destruction. The old galactic order was finished. Whatever came next would be shaped by human influence, whether the council liked it or not. 5 years after the Great Battle at Kepler Nebula, Ambassador So Kong stood before the largest gathering of intelligent beings in galactic history. The new assembly hall could hold representatives from over 3,000 worlds, and every seat was filled. The old council chambers had been too small and too formal for what galactic civilization had become. So looked out at the incredible diversity before her. There were the tall, graceful Kethlan with their silver skin that changed color with their emotions. The small, furry Veldar merchants sat next to the massive, rock-like beings from the Titan worlds. Even the proud Vortak warriors had sent delegates, though they still wore their ceremonial armor to every meeting. The age of secrets and lies is over, so declared, her voice carried by translation systems to every corner of the hall. Humanity offers not conquest but partnership. We bring our greatest gifts to share with all species, innovation, adaptation, and the courage to challenge old ways of thinking. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of beings stood and showed their approval in dozens of different ways. Some clapped like humans, others made musical sounds, and a few species changed colors to express agreement. The enthusiasm would have been impossible in the old council, where only a few powerful voices were allowed to speak. So remembered her first diplomatic mission to the Arcturus Federation 3 years ago. The Federation had been one of the first major powers to welcome human contact after the Council's defeat. Their leader, Chancellor Molven, had been curious about human concepts of individual rights and competitive economics. "Your species thinks differently than ours," Molven had explained during their first meeting. "We believe in harmony and consensus. You believe in competition and change. These ideas frighten many of our people." But So had patiently explained that competition did not mean conflict. Human-style economics encouraged innovation and efficiency while still protecting the weak. Individual rights did not destroy communities, they made them stronger by allowing every person to contribute their unique talents. The results had been dramatic. Within 18 months, Federation worlds were using human-designed trade networks that operated with incredible efficiency. Medical advances that combined human creativity with alien knowledge had eliminated diseases that had plagued the Federation for centuries. Most importantly, ordinary citizens were being allowed to speak their minds and pursue their dreams for the first time in generations. Similar transformations were happening across the galaxy. The Veldar Trade Federation had embraced human business practices so enthusiastically that their profits increased by 300% in just 2 years. The quiet Zendar philosophers had discovered that human concepts of individual expression actually enhanced their spiritual practices rather than destroying them. Even the militant Vortak Empire had changed, though more slowly. General Kexmore had initially resisted all human influence, but he could not ignore the effectiveness of human military tactics and organization. Vortak forces trained with human advisors were winning battles that had been impossible before. More importantly, they were achieving victories without the massive casualties that Vortak warfare had always required. Dr. Yang Su, humanity's chief scientific coordinator, had established research partnerships with over 200 different species. The sharing of knowledge that had been strictly controlled under the old council was now happening freely across the galaxy. Human curiosity and willingness to experiment combined with alien wisdom and advanced technology was producing breakthroughs at an unprecedented rate. The most dramatic example was the new faster-than-light communication system developed jointly by human and Kethlan scientists. Messages that had once taken months to travel between distant star systems could now be sent instantly across the entire galaxy. The technology had revolutionized trade, diplomacy, and scientific collaboration. In the assembly hall, So concluded her annual address to sustained applause. But the real measure of change was not in the formal ceremonies. It was in the thousands of small improvements that touched every aspect of galactic life. Former Councillor Drexmari watched the proceedings from his seat in the advisory section. He had been one of the architects of the old system that kept humanity hidden, and now he served as a consultant helping species adapt to the new galactic order. The irony was not lost on him. Everything the Council had feared would happen had indeed come to pass, but in ways they had never imagined. Humans had not destroyed galactic civilization through conquest and warfare. Instead, they had transformed it through ideas and innovation that spread like a virus through every corner of known space. The rigid hierarchies that had defined the old council for millennia were gone. In their place was a dynamic federation where any species could contribute and any individual could make their voice heard. Traditional power structures based on ancient privileges had given way to systems that rewarded innovation and achievement. Most shocking of all, the change had been largely voluntary. Species were adopting human practices not because they were forced to, but because those practices worked better than their old ways. Competition improved efficiency. Individual rights unleashed creativity. Technological sharing accelerated progress for everyone. As the assembly session ended and delegates from thousands of worlds began to mingle freely, Drexmari finally understood the truth the Council had been too afraid to see. Some forces are too powerful to contain, and sometimes the greatest threat to the established order is exactly what civilization needs to evolve and survive. The old galaxy was dead, killed not by human weapons but by human ideas. In its place, something magnificent had been born, a true galactic community where every species could contribute their unique strengths to the common good. Humanity had proven that the most dangerous thing in the universe was not superior technology or military might. It was the simple idea that things could be better than they were, and the courage to make that change happen.